Alright, it's time for a top 10 video. Today I want to talk about the top 10 worst abilities in Pokemon, and I want to talk about how we can fix them. I think it's good to go just beyond the, hey look, I found 10 bad abilities. So to set up some ground rules, I want to talk about abilities that I think, obviously all the abilities work properly, they function in the code, but I want to bring up abilities that don't have a purpose, either in singles, doubles, or both, and generally never see any outcome in a match, right? Oh good, I have an ability, but if it never procs, if it never sees any use, then I want to try to fix it. I'm also going to try to stay away from legendary abilities, so I'm not going to worry about Zygarde and Aura Break, because I don't care about that. It's got Power Construct and it can just deal with that. I want to concern myself more with abilities that are on all Pokemon or have the ability to be found on all Pokemon. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's get on to one honorable mention. Can't be a top 10 list without the honorable mention. Okay, honorable mention is Liquid Voice. Liquid Voice is of course only on Primarina, and it turns all of her sound-based moves into water-type moves. I think it ought to be fixed to match all the other 8 abilities like Aerialate or Pixelate or Refrigerate, and give a 20% boost in power. I have absolutely no reason why they didn't do this. It's not a particularly broken Pokemon, and it doesn't really get too much to abuse that even. The move that they gave to Primarina doesn't even really make that much sense, because its signature move actually heals the target's burn, which means that if you use that on a Pokemon, it's going to actually help them in a lot of cases. The only time I can think of where you'd actually like that effect is if I accidentally burned my opponent's Slowking and I actually wanted to Toxic it, then I can get that burn gone away. Or maybe I'm fighting against a Guts Conkeldurr and I don't want to take as much damage. Those are such niche edge cases, and I'd rather have a good move. Primarina didn't get that. I would like to have at least a good ability, and it could have a decent ability if it got Liquid Voice, or if it got Liquid Voice that gave a 20% boost rather. But this is something that's well known. Everybody knows that this is something that Game Freak just needs to click the button and it'll be fixed, and there's no real arguments there, so I only put it as an honorable mention. Alright, at number 10 we have Sniper. And Sniper is actually the reason why I decided to make this list in the first place. Sniper is an interesting ability because in theory it actually is quite powerful. It actually turns critical hits to 225%, which is stronger than they ever even were initially. And so you can have the ability to do quite a lot of damage. However, that being said, with the chance of critical hits going down, the only time a Pokemon can ever really get a Sniper hit off is if they have an increased chance move, and even then, that's not something I'd like to rely on. I'd want an increased chance move plus an increased chance item. Only Kingdra, if I'm not mistaken, has the ability to run Focus Energy, because I don't think Drapion has it, and I don't remember, I guess maybe Inteleon has it, I forget. But even then, I would rather have something like Nasty Plot over Sniper, because the Nasty Plot can stack and has the ability to do more damage in the long term, whereas Sniper only does as much damage as it's going to do once you get a crit. And while that's good for Kingdra because it can spam Draco Meteors, it's not really good for anybody else. And I'd also like to point out that Kingdra is PUBL. I don't think that with Kingdra having access to this ability that it's very good. And then Inteleon's also really low tier. Drapion never uses Sniper. It almost always runs Battle Armor. And all these Pokemon could use these abilities, but because I have to do this weird setup to get access to doing damage, when all the crit is doing for the most part is just getting me a little more than a 2x boost, I could have just ran Nasty Plot. If I had access to Nasty Plot, I'd be getting a 2x boost out of that, and I could stack it. That's way better than getting a crit, especially because after I nasty plot, I could even get a crit on top of that. So that's way better than getting a crit, and the crit chance at base value is really low, so it's really hard to see in a normal battle unless you specifically run a focus energy set. So I have one or two options. First of all, we could give Sniper increased crit chance of one stage. However, I don't really like this because that really encroaches on Superluck's whole shtick, and I don't want to make duplicate abilities or abilities that are better than others, especially ones that are widely distributed. Water Bubble, of course, is just superior to so many other water abilities, but it's only on one Pokemon, and it probably only ever will be on one Pokemon, whereas Sniper's on multiple Pokemon, and we don't want to make an ability that completely supersedes another one. So I don't really like that option. The other option, I think, is just scrap the entire critical hit gimmick entirely and change it to make super effective moves deal 3 times rather than 2 times damage. This sort of harkens back to more of hunter classes in other RPGs, where the hunter class often is tasked with dealing super effective damage to different targets. They're weak to fire, they're weak to ice. I'll hit them super effectively accordingly, and I'll actually get extra benefit for my super effective hits. And so the Sniper would take cues from the hunter class in other RPGs and do more super effective damage to targets, and that would aid in letting these Pokemon run more varied movesets. And also, if I'm a water type and you're weak to water, you have to switch out now, because I'm going to kill you, because I have 3 times damage. I could be Choice Specs or Choice Band or whatever, and that's going to really mess the day up. Alright, number 9 is Rivalry. Rivalry is a funny ability because it does 2 things that are bad. First of all, I think it's sort of a weak boost. It only boosts their attack or special attack by 25%, which is not even a Life Orb boost, and I think that could be a bit better. Second of all, it also neuters their attack or special attack if you get the gender wrong, which I think is a double-edged sword that ends up as a net neutral at best. And if it's a net neutral at best, then you might as well just have no ability at all. Right? Unless your Pokemon or your opponent has a bunch of Pokemon on their team that have to have a fixed gender. For example, if I were in draft battle and my opponent had a Mandibuzz, then I would know, well, then if I run a female Luxray, maybe I can get a kill, but I wouldn't normally be able to get a kill, even though Luxray has guts and we'll get a higher boost out of that. Bad example, maybe, but something like that, in that really fixed example, maybe Rivalry could have some use, but aside from that, you're not really getting much of a boost at all when you do get a boost, and then the other times you're getting a nerf. And against, gender-neutral targets, you wouldn't get a buff or a nerf. And I think that this needs to be fixed in 2 ways. First of all, let's give it up to 30% at least. 30% isn't too bad. It's not adaptability. It's not too crazy. The second thing, let's just get rid of the nerf. Here's the thing. If we can compare Rivalry to love or courting rituals, maybe more animalistic ones like go on full-on Bambi where you have to fight over your mate. You don't fight your mate, and also a lot of times you don't necessarily treat your mate any more softly, or you don't treat the opposite gender more softly. You can just treat them just as you would anybody else. So I don't see any reason to do less damage to them. I would just say do normal damage to them, and then do buff damage against those you perceive as threats. That's maybe not the best explained, but hopefully you get the idea. Anyway, I think that would actually give it some competitive use. Then Hacksters could forego running Mold Breaker for extra power for Rivalry. Luxray could use it over Guts or Intimidate. And it would actually have some niche uses. There are a few other ones that get it besides those 2. Those are just the 2 that come to mind. Alright, number 8, Damp. Damp does sometimes come into play, but it only will ever come into play when Explosion, Self-Destruct, Mind Blown, and Mystic Explosion are used. Now, Mind Blown is only on one Pokemon. Mystic Explosion is on multiple Pokemon, but almost never is used. The only time I can ever see using it is on Weezing, and Weezing has way better options available to it. And I know that some Mew run it as lead Mew, but I don't really view that as too big of a threat. It's not even stab, and it's not in terrain usually. Explosion is the only move on this list that you will occasionally see, and ever since Explosion got nerfed, you don't really see it altogether that often, except for maybe on the rare Landorus or something. And so I really don't think Damp is that great of an ability to run. It can be an okay ability, but it's not usually that good. I think that one way to make this so it could be useful in general battles is to say, okay, I'm going to take 50% less damage from fire moves. I consider, okay, my skin is really moist and damp, and that's enabling me to sort of fizzle out fire moves. It's sort of like a weakened Primal Groudon, right? I'm not making myself immune to fire, I'm not making myself immune to burn, so I don't invalidate Water Veil. All I'm doing is I'm just saying I take 50% less damage from fire. Almost all the Pokemon that have the ability Damp are water types, so they already were resisting fire moves. This just will help them resist it even more, sort of like a thick fat. And the only Pokemon that's not water type is Parasect, and I'm pretty sure Parasect is still going to die to any fire type moves, even if it has Damp. So this isn't making anybody broken or anything like that. I think that would actually make Damp proc more often and be more of a useful ability at that point. Alright, onto a doubles ability. Doubles abilities oftentimes present absolutely no use to singles players, but this is an ability that I don't even think doubles players usually like. Healer only has a 30% chance to heal your ally from a status condition. So if my ally gets statused, which in VGC I feel like sometimes happens, but not particularly often, then I have a % chance to heal them at the end of the turn. So it's like a shed skin for my ally, but I get no benefit, and it only happens occasionally, and that's on the occasion where a status occurs. That seems really lame to me. I think that it would be nice to give the user the shed skin ability as well. Now, of course, this does make shed skin a bit weaker, but I played around maybe saying, hey, I heal the Pokemon that switches in after me, and it's sort of like a passive natural cure, where you can pass the natural cure to the Pokemon coming in. But then I felt like that sort of took away from the spirit of the ability, where it's supposed to be more of a double support ability, and that would turn it more into a singles ability, and I don't think that's too fair. But this, of course, does make Shed Skin a bit weaker. Maybe you could increase Shed Skin's proc chance to 50% or something to make it stand out. In any case, I think the healer really needs to have something. There's so many Pokemon that get it, and I don't really feel like it has any use anywhere. The doubles players can correct me if I'm wrong on that point, but I don't feel like it's a particularly strong ability, even when it can be used in doubles. Number 6 is similar with Flower Veil. I have 2 Pokemon that can use Flower Veil. I have Florges and I have Comfey. Florges has Flower Veil or Symbiosis. Both of those are doubles moves, or doubles abilities, and Comfey will almost always want to run Triage. So this is really just Florges' ability, and it only helps ally grass type Pokemon. Now it is a very strong ability. It nerfs both status conditions and lowering of stats, but it only helps grass types, and I really think that that's unfortunate. I think that you could make it so that all allies get protected from status and lowering of stats. It's only on one Pokemon, so if this bumps up Florges' viability 100-fold, then so be it, but it's not like it's going to be super crazy, because Florges itself is not a super crazy Pokemon, in my opinion. It is quite good, and it has a lot of interesting options, but it doesn't have tons of things I would consider broken. I think maybe one thing you could say is they have to be grounded Pokemon. That way it has some kind of caveat in there. But just the fact that you have to have a grass type next to you, that would mean that if I'm playing this in singles, I have no ability whatsoever, because this doesn't do anything in singles. And in doubles, I have to have a fairy type, because Florges and Comfrey are both fairies, And next to that, I'd have a grass type, meaning that my entire team is now invalidated by any fire type that's on the opposite side. That seems like a really weak ability and really poor planning on your part if you're going to use this ability at all. So you would never use this ability. So it's entirely useless. I'm still not making it useful in single battles, but at least in doubles, you would actually be able to use Florges and pair it up with any other Pokemon and then it would be more useful, in my opinion. Okay, number 5 is Steadfast. And now here you can see my bias is showing, but I think it goes beyond just that. Steadfast will raise your speed if you get flinched. But I don't want that. I don't want to get flinched. I would rather that I just don't get flinched, or that I become immune to flinching at all, right? Or maybe just even that I become immune to moves that will have priority, right? So Queenly Majesty, for instance, I can't get faked out, so I'm not going to flinch. Inner Focus means that I won't get flinched. I'll still take the damage, but I can still attack you. And that is way more valuable. If I'm in VGC and I'm trying to deal with the Incineroar coming in, faking me out, parting shotting out, going back in and faking me out again, and that's just really annoying. I don't want to have to deal with that. If I get hit by a move that flinches me, and maybe I'm Dynamaxed, I don't get flinched, I still take the damage, and I don't get the benefit from it. So either I'm getting flinched, which means I'm losing a turn, I'm taking free damage, all I'm getting is a +1 speed. If this were +6 speed, and I automatically maxed out my speed, well then maybe that would be something else, but I don't really feel like that fits thematically, and also I still don't think that particularly helps because speed is oftentimes not the issue. It's either attack or defense when you're getting whittled down by a fat team with lots of fake out. I would rather see Steadfast at least have some kind of secondary usefulness. Becoming immune to Intimidate is the one that was passed around to everybody else, and being Steadfast in the face of opposition seems to me like that would sort of fall in line. You could also maybe make it so that you're not affected by burn damage if you wanted to do that instead. Just give it some kind of secondary ability that will actually make it useful, because I don't care about not getting +1 speed when I get flinched. Like, good job, I just don't want to get flinched. Give me Inner Focus over Steadfast any day of the week. Number 4 is one that you probably had on your own list, which is Runaway. Runaway is an ability that has no use in competitive play and only acts as a smoke ball in the in-game, basically, right? It's nice because you can have this at the front of your party and you can just run away from everything. That's nice. But one thing that's weird is that you can't run away from being trapped by Mean Look or Block or Whirlpool or whatever. I think that is ridiculous. I think you should be able to run away from that. Obviously, if you're surrounded by a wall of fire or trapped in a whirlpool, running does nothing for you. So I'm not exactly sure how that works thematically, but I think that it would be nice to just say you cannot trap this Pokemon. This Pokemon is immune to trapping, right? It can't be arena trapped. It can't be Mean Looked or Shadow Tagged or whatever. And finally, I also think that it should also be able to avoid pursuit damage and just let the Pokemon that's coming in take the pursuit damage, because you should be available to avoid pursuit if you run fast enough. That's the idea, is that you can run so fast that you evade pursuit by your chaser. That's how come you can run away in the main story. So I think that would be another good ability. Of course, we don't know if pursuit will come back. I have a feeling it probably will, but you should be able to avoid it. That's my thing. And so that would actually give Runaway some competitive use. I don't know if the Pokemon who have Runaway would want to use it still, but at least it would have some merit at that point. On to the top 3 now. At number 3, we have Forewarn. Forewarn is a weird ability because in game it just tells you, it will tell you one of your opponent's moves. It doesn't actually clarify, and this is something that I wasn't even aware of, that it actually reveals your foe's strongest move. So it's always going to pick out a attacking move, unless I guess their opponent doesn't have attacking moves, in which case I don't even know what it does at that point. And then, in addition, it'll always tell you the same exact one, so you can't even randomly switch out, switch in, and get different data points. it's always going to be the same move every single time. And that's not really useful. And this is sort of like anticipation, where you'll switch in and you'll shudder if the opponent has a good move to use against you. And that's fair. I think anticipation is another one that could have easily made the list, but I didn't want to double up on abilities like this, so I only put the one. Forewarn, I think, could be fixed to just tell me its entire moveset. Now, you could say this is too much information. At the very least, you could give me a random move, because then I could switch out, switch in, get different information. But even then, I don't necessarily know if having that much knowledge is that useful. It might be just in terms of being able to come in and know what my opponent has. Now I have all that information. So maybe knowing the entire moveset is too powerful. But I wanted to shoot for the stars, and if I overfix these abilities, then at least they won't be bad anymore. Then I can complain about how they're too broken or whatever. But I think that I would rather just have a Ditto if I wanted to know what my opponent's moveset was than Forewarn, where it tells me one move every single time always being the same. That's not information I needed, especially when I go against a Pokemon that has a really strong move that it always carries, in which case it's always going to tell me something that every trainer will already know. So it's entirely useless. Number 2, Illuminate. This one everybody saw coming. Illuminate does not do anything in battle. I think it would be easy enough to say, hey, I'm going to raise the accuracy of all Pokemon on the field by 1 stage. This almost would be akin to No Guard, but at the same time it wouldn't make moves like Dynamic Punch or Zap Cannon super usable, because it's only 1 stage. That's not enough to actually boost Zap Cannon up to full accuracy. If you gave Starmie No Guard, it would be a lot more scary, because it could use its really powerful moves like that to great effect, but 1 stage is only going to boost up some amount, sort of like Victini's ability. And then this also allows all Pokemon on the field to benefit from it. So in a doubles perspective, if I have a Starmie, it can aid a teammate that maybe has a shaky Focus Blast or something. And I think that would be really useful. And actually would make an Illuminate not a terrible ability. I don't know if any Pokemon that have Illuminate would use it. Maybe something like a Volbeat. I don't know. Alright, and at number 1 we have Power Spot. Power Spot is a very dumb ability, because all it does is acts as a passive helping hand, and it doesn't do anything at all in singles, and in doubles, Stonejourner is a meh Pokemon. It has Rock Slide, that's cool, but it doesn't really have many support moves unless I'm mistaken, and has terrible Spadef to the point where it's going to die from almost every special move. It suffers from Kartana syndrome in that respect. I don't really want to make this ability too busted, and I also want to stay true to the theme, where Stonejourner is granting power to other Pokemon. But I think that maybe if I were a Power Spot and nobody was there to grant power to, that I would maybe instead focus all that power on preserving myself, so that I can in future give that power to others. And so I will give myself double defense. And Stonejourner with double defense would still be very weak Spadef wise, but on the physical side it would actually be very bulky, and you could actually use that in both singles and I suppose doubles, but more so singles, to make it so that, hey, I can take multiple physical hits, maybe run a Rest Talk set if I wanted to, and I think that would be somewhat useful for Stonejourner. Anyway, that's my top 10 abilities that I think need fixing and how I would fix them. We know that Game Freak in the past has fixed abilities, especially this past gen, and I am interested to see what abilities they decide to take a look at in the upcoming generation. So let me know what you guys think. If you had some abilities on your mind that you thought should have made this list, or maybe you think that my options are too extreme, let me know. Maybe you think they don't go enough. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys next time. See ya.